hello there, Chick Chat. We're back with Gypsy, and it's been a long time since we've talked about Gypsy, especially this season. So we are very excited to be back and talking about her. But we must prefacize this video, as I'm sure we'll have to do this again at some other point in the season. But we are not here to discuss Gypsy's crime exactly. So if you got things to say about Gypsy, that's fine. But please don't come for us in our comments, or else we were going to have to take your commenting privileges away. We had a lot of issues last season about people just being crazy in the comments. And we're just a small channel. We're just here to discuss what we're seeing on Lifetime. If we hear little rumors here and there, we might throw those in, but we're not really here to discuss the crime. We know the crime happened. We know a lot about the crime. We've both watched a ton of information on the crime. We've seen court documents. We've seen things like that. So we're not ignorant to what Gypsy has done, but we are also avid watchers of reality TV, and we're enjoying this mess. So we're going to talk about it with you guys. And we just hope you're here for the fun times. We just like to be as impartial as we can, even though Gypsy sometimes makes it difficult. But we're just here to discuss the good times. So please remain civil in our comment section. And that's all I got to say about that.
On to our regularly subscribed programming here. Also, if you're new here for the second season, we're happy to have you. We hope that you stick around. We hope you subscribe. And like Anne said, welcome back to everybody who joined us last season, because we grew a lot with Gypsy last season. And we all enjoyed, I think, just the entertainment factor. Again, I know that people have mixed emotions about her history and her past and what's gone on. There's a lot of channels to go and have a lot of dialogue with people about that. And not that you can't necessarily have that here either, but we are here just to really sort of review the episodes that are on and talk about those things mostly. So
right. And help us reach our 800 subscriber goal. We're really close. So let's get over the edge. Our real goal is 1,000, but we're doing this in baby steps.
Yes. Yeah. So help us get there for sure. And we're happy to have you here.
We're taking this more seriously than Gypsy is jumping into everything else. We're jumping into it with more caution.
She is a little more thought than Gypsy is, but
a little bit more thoughtful.
Anyway, so we come to a familiar place, a new place, but sort of familiar. It seems like every time we find Gypsy, she's in a man's bedroom with some
kind of sign too with Gypsy up there. She really makes an impression on these dudes. These dudes be getting neon signs.
She has me questioning myself. Have I never been truly loved? You know, I don't have people making signs for me, pillows, blankets that they can't live without. I mean, I don't know.
It's crazy. Wild. At first, too, when I saw the picture, I was saying to my husband, I was like, it looked like Ryan at first. I thought we were in the wrong place.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's so familiar, yet vaguely different.
Vaguely.
So we're in Ken's apartment, actually, and they let us know that this is June of 2024, and Ken has moved to Louisiana strictly because this woman is pregnant. He did not see his life playing out in Louisiana, but here we are with the circumstances. Gypsy briefly mentions Ryan. She says that they don't have a whole lot of contact these days, but whenever they do have contact, she's apologizing to him for breaking his heart. As she should, I guess. The woman married him, divorced him, had a whole baby on him. There's a lot to apologize for. Literally had a t-shirt on last season while asking him for a divorce that said your trauma, and I think that quite literally was what was happening for Ryan at the time.
Yeah. And Ken has some interesting mannerisms. I'm not gonna lie. Every time I see Ken talking, I'm like, is he? I mean, I'm not trying to speculate on Ken's orientation, but I got some questions. Especially when he's like, I've never been in a situation with a woman pregnant. It's like, have you with a man or something? I'm really confused here.
There were a couple of moments. The butt touching during cuddling was a very obvious one, but there were a couple of other moments where I felt like the producers were trying to throw the bait out there and see what they both would do. I think there were 2 or 3 times, actually, this episode that had some weird innuendos going on.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just looking for it because I think anyone who follows Gypsy probably knows that there's rumors about Ken and his preferences.
And Grindr.
Yeah, that he has had a Grindr. It looks pretty legit to me, but these are allegations. I don't think he confirmed ever that that was his. So people have questions, I think, about his preferences, about his sexual orientation, but he's never said anything about it. I don't know if it was my biased brain, but it seemed like there was a couple of innuendos thrown out by the production that made me chuckle a little bit.
Oh, yeah. And Ken also almost lets it slip several times that Gypsy's there more than she says she is. And she's trying to correct the record on TV, like, well, it's not really going to be my house.
I know. It's hard because you can see that Gypsy's face is so uncomfortable, and it's so reminiscent of her dates with Ryan. But I feel like there's a lot more to the backstory with all this. But yeah, it seems like her whole goal in filming at least this episode is to prove that she's not living with this man.
although she's house hunting with this man and everything else. And we're not dumb. We know it's going to be your house too. She's like, well, it's going to be your house, Ken. You know?
I almost burped.
Like, don't forget, Ken, it's not my house.
And this is so dumb. Like, it is eventually going to be her stupid house.
He's like, what do you want in it? What do you think we should be looking for? They do make a point to say that Ken has put thousands of miles on his car going from Cutoff to New Orleans. But why didn't you just move closer?
Right. Have you seen where Cutoff is?
It's down there.
It's the lowest one there. Cutoff. It's the cutoff of the road. I mean, there's no more road after that. There's like a couple more roads. I'm telling you, a couple, like a handful, like less than this many.
It's out there, and there ain't much out there. But I mean, he could have moved to a little bit of a closer city, I think. Like, I don't know how far New Orleans is from that, but it seems like he looked at that little town. He was like, absolutely not. I'm not going from Dallas to this. But I don't know. I just feel like he could move a little closer, so this way, you know, Nanny Christie has a easier time getting to that baby. But
yeah, it looks like there's just one main road that goes all the way, you know, down all the way basically to Cutoff, and it looks like a long ass road, and they all look like very small, you know, bayou, I think it is bayou type of towns. Yep. So yeah, I can't imagine him really wanting to live anywhere within 200 miles probably of Cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been there, so I can't exactly say, but I was just looking at the map the other day and kind of checking out where Cutoff is in relation to New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Also because it was recently Cinco de Mayo and I was watching the Snap stories and stuff down there, so I just got in a whole distracted de Mayo gypsy world for a while. But it looks like it's quite the hike. If you're even close to Cutoff from where that big long road starts that takes you down there, I mean, you're going to put 500 miles probably easily each trip on your car. So I can see him putting a lot of time and miles on the car. Does she get a license of her own? Is that a restriction she has, or is that just something she don't want to do?
From what I've heard is that she's working on it. I think she's got a permit right now, and she's working towards her license, or she might be fully licensed now. Mm-hmm. But I don't think she ever learned. Obviously, when she was with her mom, she couldn't learn.
Right.
And when she was in prison, she definitely couldn't learn. So I don't think it's a restriction thing. I just think she never had one to restrict. Now it will probably become restricted when she gets it. Like, you can only go here and there, maybe, because I don't really know the conditions of her parole when it comes to that. They could change it and whatever, but they do end up talking about the baby, and the situation doesn't look good on them, about becoming pregnant and not getting through the divorce and stuff like that, which, like, y'all made a choice. Condoms are available to all people.
Yeah, she pretty much says as much as well, that she didn't plan for this, but she's gonna put her big girl pants on or whatever. And
when your dad literally calls you out and says you want a baby, I don't know how much I believe in that.
Well, that's the thing. Just like you said, there was ways to prevent this, but now this is happening. So yeah, you're gonna obviously have to deal with it, whether you secretly wanted it, didn't want it, thought you wanted it. You're ecstatic. It's happening. So there you go, Gyp Gyp.
There you have it.
So they end up at the ultrasound appointment, and they get a little photo there. We get a little bit of her family, you know, kind of talking in the background. The baby shower's kind of getting set up as well.
Yep.
Which happened, it seems like it happened really early.
It was a gender reveal.
Oh, okay. I'm just dumb. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, which by that ultrasound, I'm surprised they could tell, but nothing really adds up here anyways. Anyway, so Rod is talking about how he knew she wanted a baby, but he hoped that she would wait. Same kind of sentiment with Mia as well, that Mia was also disappointed. But, you know, with Gypsy, everything goes in one ear and out the other. So I agreed with her on that. I was like, man, Mia is still the star of this show to me. She's the only one with any sense. Rod sometimes has sense, but we also get Christy talking about how this baby's going to be in her care almost all of the time. And I'm like, yup.
I think that was a fluffy way of saying Gypsy's not going to do nothing for this baby, so I'm going to have to take care of it all the time. But
I'm going to have arthritis. That woman.
You are. What I thought was interesting was Ken's dad. It don't seem like this man's ever heard of Gypsy until she got pregnant.
Pretty much. I listened to the episode that she did with Kale Lowry on her podcast. It sounds to me that she met Ken's mom when she was in prison, but she never met any of his other family until basically she became pregnant. So he probably didn't really know much about her until then. Because I think Ken's parents are also divorced.
It's probably not the first thing you want to run to your parents and say either, that you're in a relationship with somebody who's in prison, let alone somebody who has the history that Gypsy has. So I can see him not knowing, but I mean, I thought it was interesting, right? You don't hear about this girl and then all of a sudden she's pregnant and there's actually this huge, deep love connection for years and years or whatever. He seems like he's on board. He seems like everyone else, worried that this woman is technically still married and having a baby with this man. But everybody seems to be welcoming the baby, which I
thought
think
he was
is
kind of cute with his little Turkish accent and everything.
yeah, he helps Ken make more sense to me too. Some of his mannerisms are a little bit different, but I think it helps us to see that his dad is foreign, and so he just picks up on mannerisms that just aren't the same as our culture. And I think sometimes that's why some people come off as a little different, and you can't really put your finger on them. So I'm trying to give Ken the benefit of the doubt here that maybe this is why he's pink.
Yeah, we have also seen some questionable evidence as well. So we'll just stay a little bit in the middle.
We like the middle.
We like the middle. So we see them set up the gender reveal, and it all seems to go well. Gypsy is excited. It is a girl, and it's a girl. And
this was wild. You're wild for this, Mia.
Mia does say that we don't want them to just get married because we don't want a repeat of Dee Dee. And it's like, you weren't even around for that.
I thought this was a little bit out of pocket. I'm not going to lie. To bring up this woman.
She ain't wrong, but
she's not wrong. But just to bring up this woman and the circumstances of that. And they had shown in some of the transitions, social media's responses and stuff like that. And people have a lot of opinions about Gyp Gyp. And people are already saying this to her, essentially reminding her of the situation with her mom and whatever. I think I got a picture. Look at this.
She looked good there, though.
That is like prime 80s.
1990,
Too much
1989.
for the 90s.
Yeah. The early 90s was still the 80s. You know, decades transition.
True.
A couple years, but
I feel like this was like 83.
I think it was 89 because Gypsy was born in 90. So
it
could have been 89 or 90.
Right. Definitely. They did not have a long marriage.
That's definitely a nice little poof and everything she got going on there. It's probably the best Dee Dee's ever. I mean, after that, she went pretty downhill, but she was also, I'm sure, depressed. But anyways, we saw how this worked out, obviously. But Rod also had another woman pregnant at this time that he didn't marry. So either way, it wasn't working out for Rod.
Yeah. You know, Dee Dee had her own problems, and we all know that, of course. But let's not just blame Dee Dee for the situation here of a pregnancy and a failed marriage and stuff. I mean, Rod had his own story. Yeah. He was living his own life.
Yes, although Dee Dee was much older.
Sure. But that is a lot of circumstances here. A lot of questionable things going on. But Rod is, I don't know. I have a strange attraction to Rod.
I think a lot of people do.
He's looking good in this picture.
He always looked good. That's why Dee Dee was there as a 24-year-old woman. Jesus. Anyways, yes, I thought it was interesting though that Mia brought that up too, just because like you weren't even alive during that. You don't know how that went.
I just kind of thought that was a low blow, honestly, to Gypsy. Just sort of like, you know, my dad didn't love your mom. That's what I got from it, and I thought that it was kind of mean.
To their own, I guess, Mia. But they show us a lot of compilations of the TikTokers and all of us who like to make videos on this matter. And hey, what's up? Hopefully we get featured on your next one. And then we see that Gypsy and Ken are going to therapy to discuss just how to better their relationship. On the way there, Ken's like, I don't think we need this, but you don't always go to therapy because you immediately need it right away. It's good to build up some skills, especially if you're about to be new parents. And Gypsy's been through a lot of stuff, and it's got to be interesting being with her, the public eye situation alone. So I think Gypsy was right to drag this man to therapy to talk about these things. And it seems like they do miscommunicate a lot. It seems like when they do argue that things just get swept under the rug, and if Ken don't want to talk about something, Ken don't want to talk about something, and then she hangs up, and then they're back to square one. So.
Yeah, especially not being with each other. Sometimes it can be hard not being able to get away when you live in the same place, but it's also a benefit that you can't ignore somebody for days and days or hours and hours either. So I think they really do need to learn better communication skills, like Gypsy said, especially if they're not living together. Pretty soon they're going to have a reason that they need to communicate to each other, whether they like it or not, no matter what kind of terms they're on. So this would be a good thing for them to learn no matter what. So I'm happy to see them showing up here. I also think anytime that you're about to have a baby, it's a great time to go to therapy. It really makes you think about how you want to parent and your own parenting, and it just brings up a lot of stuff in your life. And like you said, Gypsy really has been through a lot of stuff when it comes to parents and relationships and things that she's seen and experienced. I think this is great for her. I hope that they don't film it beyond this so that they can really do some actual work in there. But we'll see. I did think it was interesting. The clock on the wall, within the course of 2 or 3 minutes, they really had a whole, you know, we're happy with each other, we're mad at each other, we're going back and forth. It was just, it's a lot going on within the course of a few minutes. So.
The lady wanted a taste of it all. So.
She did, and Gypsy said something about like, Ken shuts down sometimes and it's hard to talk to him and get through with him, and the therapist asked, what are some examples of those topics? And Gypsy knew exactly what button to press, so she brings up the social media button, and this therapist is dazzled at how quickly Gypsy can make this man just.
She knows.
She's
Yeah,
like,
she's like,
wow.
oh, this is great.
Yeah.
No, let's not get too deep on one topic though. But I think the social media must be a point of contention. It seems like they're both very invested in social media. I remember Ken was going on all these Mr. Morbid lives trying to defend himself. So I think it is a shell shock for Ken to now have his business just completely out there. And you keep wanting to hide behind this whole Ken broke up with me 5 years and I didn't know why. If you don't tell somebody why you break up with somebody and they just accept that, that's some weird ish going on. And he can make up anything in those 5 years. Like I don't fully believe
he has.
I don't believe that Ken's actions were so honorable because I heard that he was dating somebody after Gypsy. So I think you can make up anything in those 5 years if you don't give somebody closure on why you're breaking up with them, which I do think is really crappy of him to just he called her one day and said, this isn't working, and then hung up on her knowing that she can't really get a hold of him back.
Totally. I don't know if he necessarily broke up with her because being with her as a public figure was too much. I don't think he was necessarily known that publicly at the time, but I don't know if people weren't following her as much at the time. Yeah. I don't really know the reason, but you're right. After a whole bunch of time has gone on, you can pretty much pick any reason. And of course, you're going to come up with some fluffy excuse of, oh, I thought you wanted to have time to grow, blah, blah, blah. Then don't leave someone in some kind of negative, semi-traumatic, abandoned type of situation. That's not going to help them grow. That's going to make her run right to the next person and hold on to it even harder. And that's why the girl ended up married.
Yeah, and a fool in love will believe anything you say at that point. If you say my actions were honorable, she's going to latch on to that. Okay, well then he's great then. He's not this bad person then.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave my husband now for him and have a whole family and all of this. I think they really need to be in this therapist's office talking through a lot of this stuff because Gypsy has a lot of her own ideas about what went on, but part of it does seem to be Ken's reality, and he's not admitting to that really. He's not letting them get through that and get somewhere else. He's just denying it, and she's just looking for all the reasons why he could possibly be overwhelmed and trying to leave.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for them. I don't know how they're going to try to portray it to us. Things are good, or if they're going to be authentic or whatever, but this is not going to be easy.
The more therapy for these people, the better.
Bring all the therapists.
All types of therapy.
I think this happens with a lot of people. People are in general defensive, especially when people are trying to tell them about themselves. But Gypsy was sitting in this office trying to tell the therapist. Ken gets upset on social media and it makes him emotional, and she thinks, I'm not saying I believe any of this, but she's like, I'm better at this than he is, or I've been in this longer than he is, and so he's just not used to it. And then he wants to say, oh, I completely disagree, and then goes on to agree with Gypsy and say, well, I'm just learning how to navigate social media, and so blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this is what she said.
He does call her out for also being in her comments as well, because Gypsy is living in there as well. They're both doing the same thing. I'm sure they're next to each other in bed, just like,
right. But the thing is, they're both arguing on who's right, and they're actually missing the point that they're agreeing with each other.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you're wrong. Social media is new to me. No, you're wrong. I'm just learning social media. It's like, do you guys hear each other?
Yep. But I feel like this lady's just here for the tea.
She's going to have a lot of questions.
Oh, yeah.
Gypsy has another thing that she's hoping that they can tackle in therapy is just to sort of shore up their relationship with each other, because they did get pregnant so early. She wants to make sure that he's going to be on board for the relationship and not just to keep a home unbroken.
Do you notice that he never validates her when she says this? Yeah. He never does. She said it multiple times. I just wanted to make sure he wants to be here because he wants to be here. And all he does is just sits there and it's like in his head, he's like, I want to make sure of that too. Like he's not validating her. Like, no, I do want to be in this relationship. He's not saying that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, right? And they're honest about that with each other. Neither one of them signed up to make a baby. Yes, they did the things that, make babies and whatever, and now they're here. But neither one of them woke up that morning and they were like, we're going to get pregnant together and be stuck with it.
I wouldn't be surprised if Gypsy did. It seemed like she was trying to have a baby. I don't know. When your dad calls you out like that, I think you've been making some comments.
No, I think she definitely was talking about wanting to start a family very soon, but I don't know. I'm not in her head. But she's very impulsive, very irresponsible.
Very impulsive and irresponsible. Yep. Mm-hmm. So we go over to Ryan, who is thanking all of us for our support, or anybody.
Thanking and blessing the people.
Maybe I'll post here soon. Just follow me for my thoughts. I'm glad they threw him in there for that 1 second of the video that we've all seen came out right after the season concluded. We're also just making sure that man was all right and alive and well.
Thanks for that, Ryan. We were worried.
And then we go back over to Ken and Gypsy's, but it's really Ken's, I guess, whatever. And again, they talk about moving and stuff, and she's really trying to make sure we know that she don't live there, but Ken's really making sure that we know that she kind of basically does. Yeah. That she's there for so many nights a week, I guess, and he does have to drive her back and forth, but it does seem like she might be staying there more than 2 nights. But I guess it's not up to me to decide.
Yeah, her current story is she is sticking with her parole, as I'm sure she's going to want broadcasted on national television. But I don't know. I'm sure it's sometimes the weather gets a little iffy or it's raining or something. And, you know, maybe, whoops, she stayed for 4 nights instead of 2. I don't know. I'm not there. But
who's to know?
But they have this tiny apartment. Ken's got his crap everywhere.
He just moved, so I'm sure he hasn't really unpacked, especially because he's already looking at a house and stuff. I don't think he's gonna completely settle into this little apartment. He said he wished he would have did more looking around because he doesn't seem very thrilled with where he's at anyways. But
it sounds like he just signed a lease without going somewhere because the baby sped all this up, but the baby ain't coming for you. Could have came down here and looked at 2 or 3 apartments before you signed it. But okay, so this is starting to make me wonder a little bit about Ken.
I think he's also impulsive, but I think Gypsy also called him and was like, you need to move closer because I'm pregnant. And I think that there's a pressure there as well. But Ken really could have just stayed in his apartment and then found a house from there. Because if this whole point is to get into a house, why sign all these leases and whatever?
Because you're putting security deposits down first and last month's rent. You're probably going to break a lease if you're trying to move so quickly into a house, unless you just signed a 6-month or month-to-month. But if that's the case, then it's more expensive. So I think that it was kind of silly. I don't know why, if you can only be there for 2 nights a week, that we rushed all the way into this tiny, weird apartment that nobody likes to be in.
Yeah.
No, nobody likes it. The dog don't like it. Ken don't like it. Gypsy don't like it. This is, I think, the beginning of the resentment, and nobody should have made this choice. It was unnecessary.
At least not this fast. I mean, he could have waited a couple months, I think. Not that he doesn't need to be close to the baby, and I'm sure he wants to go to the appointments and things like that, but I think that's why we wait to have babies until we get to a more stable situation. But it's neither here nor there at this point. We do go house shopping after Gypsy trying to make sure we know that it's Ken's house, because he'll be like, what kinds of things are you looking for in the house? She's like, well, it's your house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll be nice for you and the baby.
For you and the baby. And he's like, well, you'll be there too. And she's like, no, I won't.
I mean, part of me is kind of following along this idea that maybe their relationship is not going so great. He's got some weird facial expressions sometimes. You catch him when his face is looking very uncertain. And I know that a lot of this is editing and they're probably trying to make it look that way. But this dinner that we'll get at the end, it's giving dates with Ryan. Anyways, so they're looking at a house. I think that they found one that they did like. And eventually they do get approved for that house too.
Some of them look good on the outside, then you got in the inside, and I was like, And then some look bad on the outside, and then you get in the inside, and they looked okay. So I was like, what is this place, Louisiana?
Right. I think there was one that had a fenced-in yard. I think that's the one that they put an offer in on that ended up getting approved. But we'll see. They ended up back at their apartment, and this is where Gypsy was talking about how maybe it was a mistake to get married and be stuck with somebody right out of prison.
Maybe.
And that this gradual process of getting to know each other and moving in with each other gradually over 2 nights a week is better. And wow, would you have a look at it?
Would you just look at it? Well, we do find out that Ken has a king-size bed and he doesn't like to have body heat right on top of him. And Gypsy says, well, as long as my butt's touching his butt, I'm fine. And then Ken's like, I don't even like that. And then the producers shadily go, oh, you don't like butt stuff, Ken? And he looked caught in something.
He's like, oh,
I didn't mean that for my grinder friends. I just meant I don't like He didn't say that part, but
no, he didn't. But that's basically what his face said. And Gypsy over here was like, let's not go there. Why aren't we going there, Gyp?
Why aren't we going there? Have y'all been going there? I don't know. I got questions, but I'm afraid to ask them. Anyways, yeah, I noticed that too. Gypsy lives there when there is a freaking picture of her at Hogarts, which is what my husband calls Hogwarts, from what she was like 14, 15 in that photo. Is that just Ken's favorite photo of her of all time or something? Like, why is that
I just couldn't let it go without documenting.
The producers were great for zooming in on that one. But then we see Gypsy go down a cutoff, and there's apparently a hurricane or storm or something going through, and Christy's sick, so she don't really want to actually evacuate. Apparently in Louisiana, you just tough it out, even though it's a mandatory evacuation. And Ken's just like, well, hope you don't die. And I'm like, wow, the father of her child.
I know.
Okay, Ken. The way to show concern. And he did seem kind of concerned that they weren't evacuating, but it seemed like Gypsy was more longing for him to be with her, or for her to go up to him. And Christy's like, no, we're going to stay here. I'm sick as a dog. It's just a little bit of rain.
A weird scene, the whole thing. Her being sick and Gypsy sitting on the couch asking if there's a man around. I know Gypsy's pregnant, so she probably can't be really doing a whole lot, but
Yeah.
it just all came across so weird. It's a
Yeah.
mandatory evacuation. We're sitting here, we're gonna sleep all day in case we die. It just I don't know. I know a lot of people stay when there is a mandatory evacuation, whether it's a fire or a flood or a hurricane or whatever. If it's your home, a lot of people have a hard time leaving that. So I'm not gonna judge that. That's for them. But this whole scene just was weird to me. It felt like I'm not supposed to be here right now. They need some private time to deal with what's going on.
Yeah, she does ask Chrissy if there's a man around to do all these chores that Chrissy says she's got to do right before the storm, but it sounds like the storm's already happening.
So, yeah, they're definitely getting louder bands, if not in the hurricane. So
Christy's like, I don't need no man. I can do it myself, because Rod is probably on a boat somewhere. He's not obviously around right now.
In the hurricane.
He's gone in the hurricane himself. He's going to get up out of this bed at some point, I guess, and do all this stuff. But it seems like they
really sounded bad. She sounded very sick.
Horrible. She did. That's why I think Gypsy was concerned, asking if we got a nice neighbor that we can ask to help us. Mm-hmm. It seems like the storm didn't hit them too bad. They looked like they had a little bit of damage. But
Gypsy did share a little bit about her experience with Hurricane Katrina. It was a really big turning point in her life, where she ended up moving from Louisiana to Missouri. And in her perspective, from her story that she tells, she says that is when a lot of the schmooze went to a whole other level. One, because her medical records were apparently lost in the flood, and two, because her mom no longer was taking her own mental health medications at the time. So those are kind of things, I think, roads that allowed things to go on in Missouri. Again, I know a lot of people have opinions about what went on about that, but she could change her age at that point. She could kind of tell doctors what was going on rather than having a medical record follow hers. It seems like this was a big turning point in Gypsy's life. I sort of felt bad for her a little bit. I don't know if she was really taking all of that in, but what a kind of crazy point. You're pregnant with your first child, and the last time that you were in a big hurricane like this, your life changed in such a drastic way, and it went as south can get. Obviously, that's not going to happen every time you're in a hurricane, but I imagine she was probably pretty scared.
I'm sure she went through some types of emotions and things, but luckily this hurricane wasn't too bad, like Hurricane Katrina type level. It looks like it was just like a few down trees and maybe a little bit of damage, but nothing Christy can't deal with.
Yeah, she's out there cutting stuff, putting Gypsy in her place.
She lets us know Gypsy also used to be in bed all the time. Now she's not. I feel like she cut that up. I think Gypsy was fine after Ryan. I think she was trying to make it seem like Gypsy was slightly heartbroken about the divorce, which I'm sure she had feelings about it, but seeming like she was also talking to Ken since February, so I don't know how sad Gypsy was.
I think Gypsy feels guilty. Again, I'm not in her head. I think she feels less guilty than she feels a loss of somebody she loved. I think she recognizes that she did this man dirty, and she feels embarrassed that everyone knows that, and she feels slightly guilty that she hurt him. But it ain't no, I miss Ken. Ain't no, I miss Ryan.
Although she might after that dinner date for a second. Possible. Oh, we see Ryan actually for a second, don't we?
Yeah, he just wanted to clarify, say a couple of things, hop on, bless the people again, and let us know he is not going to be talking crap about Gypsy.
Yep, he's just going to be sad about her in his jersey. So they talk about how the divorce is going to be proceeding, and she thinks that she's going to be getting this divorce real quick, but it seems like it takes a few extra months. She didn't really get the divorce until December.
Yeah, and I know we're in June. Timeline for a minute, and then it kind of dropped off. So I don't know exactly when this was happening.
Who knows where we're at right now? I think we're getting into more like September, October, and I think it still takes a couple extra months because they did want to establish paternity and things like that. But she thinks that the divorce is going to go through pretty quick, and I guess we'll see on that.
I think this is also when she finds out that they got approved for the house.
And then Ken's like, we got approved, and she's like, you mean you did? Just love that.
She gets asked about Ryan because of the divorce about to be finalized. So she says she thinks that Ryan still has a little bit of hope going on because the divorce isn't finalized, but she's been adamant this whole time that there's no hope, and she wishes that he would just move on and find his own happiness.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. I wonder if they're going to get into that whole hacking situation, because with those hacker messages, it seems like she was almost low-key leading him on sometimes. I think she kind of likes having Ryan still obsessed with her. I think this feeds her little ego.
She craves attention, that's for sure.
So we also get another flashback with her and Ken talking about the past, and it's their anniversary coming up. And we go to dinner with Gypsy and Ken, and this is the infamous dinner that everyone is now talking about on social media. Immediately, what struck me when they sat down is Ken didn't even let the girl look at the menu. He just orders.
It seems like this happens often for them.
She said this is going to be like the last dinner we
And I don't know. I've never been pregnant, but it seems like she's eating a lot of seafood. Is that something you should stay away from or no?
You're
I don't know.
supposed to stay away from seafood, especially certain things, because of the mercury levels. You're not supposed to have too much of it.
I
And some
thought
things
so.
you have salmon's okay, cod's okay. I forget the whole
Okay.
list, but there is some that are higher in mercury than others. And all Ken ordered was seafood. And Gypsy is
I know.
admittedly a picky eater. She didn't
Yeah.
have much experience with food. She was originally eating through a feeding tube, and her experience with food is quite limited. At one point, it was her first time ever going to Taco Bell. I remember them talking about this, and they got everything on the menu just so she could try everything.
Yeah.
And she is very picky. She doesn't like tomatoes, it seems, which I don't really like cut up tomatoes. I like
Girl, me
tomato
neither.
sauce, and I like ketchup. I like it when it's crushed up, but I don't like it in chunks and things like that. Sometimes it's a texture thing for people. But Ken takes it upon himself to order for Gypsy, which isn't terrible because I order for my husband all the time, but it's more like I know what he likes.
Exactly.
That's
an act of love, right? When someone knows what you like and they can order what you like, even with all the little specifications and whatever,
Yeah.
that makes someone feel loved. That makes someone feel known and seen. When you order someone a whole bunch of stuff that you almost know that they're not going to like, even if it's for this weird sake of you're a new person in a rebirth now, and so you're going to try new things, at least order her something you know she's going to like, if that's the case. I really didn't like Ken in this day. I don't know how much producers were up to producing and all that. I also feel like some of her faces in this, let's remember, you know, she is a pregnant woman. She could be feeling sick. She could be feeling tired. She could have a lot of other things going on. She looks super disinterested, and she could be super disinterested. But sometimes it just looks like she's straight up looks like she's going to throw up, and not even just from the food. So
this was a time I felt bad for her in a way. She doesn't like any of this stuff. She's on an anniversary date. I think, like you said, they could have ordered her a plate of something she liked, and then he could do whatever he wants. If he wants her to try a bite, try a bite. But you're just eating all the dishes on your own at this point. She's not even really able to eat. And I think the server also felt bad for her because she's saying things like, "Sorry, I'm just picky," because she's just trying to play it off like, "Yeah, everything was good," and then Ken's like, "No, it's not. You didn't like it."
I thought that this was just down and dirty, honestly. Because she already said from the first thing that she didn't like it, and now the second thing, and you can tell at this point that she's kind of embarrassed. You know, people are just want to be polite. The waiter doesn't actually probably care what Gypsy thinks of the food, to be honest. He's just also being polite. She just says it's fine, and then this guy wants to go and, oh, she's lying, blah blah blah. Yeah, shame her. I picked up every word that this man said because I thought he was perfect here. This is so dumb. You can be picky for whatever reason you want. You can be pregnant, you can be an adult, you can have your own choices. You're allowed to eat whatever you want. And when he said public shaming rarely works, look at her face. She was in love with that man. You're my next baby daddy. When do you want to get married?
She's like, "That's what I've heard, but that's what you feel right now, girl." She tiptoes around Ken so hard. You can tell she don't want to lose this man for nothing. She won't even let her feelings be known about. I don't like that. I want to order for myself. Because even though that one last dinner with Ryan is kind of reminiscent of that, but the opposite way, it's at least Ryan let her order her own food, and she was scarfing that down. I mean, at least she had her own little choice.
She's got nothing to do but drink this little NA mojito.
Yep. And a lot of people also thought she was drinking alcohol. I don't think she's drinking alcohol. I think she's just drinking a mocktail. So I'll clear that out.
Wasn't stated either way, but I
don't think she's dumb enough to drink alcohol on camera.
Yeah, and I'm down to say, you know, this girl makes a lot of mistakes, but I just don't think on camera at this far along she's going to be having, you know, mixed cocktails.
Especially when she's so careful on letting us know she ain't living with Ken.
Non-alcoholic drinks are honestly popular more so now. So let's not.
Yeah, Ken makes a whole ass of himself the entire time. And I don't know if he did this on purpose to like trigger her or what, because I feel like he knew he was being a dick. The waiter's even trying to stand up for her. Like he said to the waiter, "I'm just trying to shame her a little bit for on an anniversary date. Why can't
you want your date to feel shame? That's not very romantic."
On your anniversary date with your pregnant girlfriend that left her husband for you. So
you're now force feeding seafood. Like, let's just chill out.
Gypsy hasn't eaten a lot of food, so you don't even know what she's allergic to. Like she might be allergic to something and you don't know, and you're just making her eat it. And then he gets something that's caked with things that she doesn't like. He knows she doesn't like tomatoes, and it's a salad that has tomato in the name. This poor girl had to probably go to In-N-Out after this or something.
You know, maybe production does this just to make people really start to feel bad for Gypsy, because this just has me reeled all the way in here. I'm like, this poor girl. You don't know what's really reality here, but at least in this scene, from what I'm seeing, can't this woman find a man that's normal?
Yeah, like this is just really weird and controlling over something dumb like food. Just let a woman eat. She's been eating weird concoctions for the last 10 years. Like, let her order a steak. I'm sure that's what she originally thought. Like, imagine going to your anniversary dinner all pumped up to eat a steak, and then you can't even get a word into the waiter before he's like, what's the special? Okay, we'll have one of those, and we'll have one of these, and goodbye.
Right. See you never. Take the menus away.
She couldn't even be like, wait, I want a steak. Help me. I think if I was that waiter, I might have slipped her a little.
He even offered her creamy Italian pasta, and I think she said no because she knew Ken wasn't going to let her have it.
I didn't like this dinner at all. I don't know. I'm not always the biggest Gypsy supporter. I can see through some of the stuff, but this was just a bad day. And then it's funny because there's a picture of them from this date. And when you see that picture, you know exactly what was going on with this date. And you moved all the way to New Orleans to do this. It was kind
have
of
dates
wild.
like this. And he said he doesn't have a lot of friends or a lot going on. And so you would think he'd be in a great mood, wanting everything to be real positive and happy and whatever. They got things going on. Instead, he just fumbled the bag trying to feed her food she doesn't like, and then he wants to have some conversation about them making their house a home. Hello, sir. It is not the time. How about, I'm sorry. Are you hungry? Do you want some food?
Yeah, the waiter is the real MVP during this whole entire
Loved that
date.
man. I wish Gypsy would find herself a man like that.
I wonder if the season's filled with more moments like this, because it's interesting to see almost the similarities between Ryan and Ken. Honestly, I feel like they're kind of similar in personality. It's just
Well, and it makes sense that Gypsy is attracting this type of person. She still needs a lot. Like, she still depends on people a lot for her daily functioning, right? She's not driving still. She still has a lot to learn. She still has a lot of foods to try, apparently. So there's just a lot that she's still taking in life. And I think it attracts a certain type of person who might enjoy a little bit more control in a relationship and some more submissiveness. And I think no matter how much healing Gypsy does, she's always going to see being submissive as someone loving her. So I think she's always going to kind of fall into relationships like this. But I hope Ken is her forever, just for her peace. But hopefully, if not, the men become less controlling.
I think that's what the therapist would be great to help with. And I think you're right. I think she does attract a certain type of person. I think it's interesting to see her and Ken's dynamic finally, because now you see this man that kind of likes to not validate her on whether or not he's going to stay there just because of a baby or not. And he kind of wants to have a little bit of control in what she eats and things like that. Just like last season, people were up in arms about Ryan kind of controlling who she hangs out with and to spend her time with. And really, they're very similar to me. It's just different looks, but it's almost the same man.
Yeah, no, I think so, for sure. So, I mean, we'll see. Maybe this was just a bad date. I do think editing can do a lot, and I don't know why they would want to make this look like a bad date. But
same thing could have been said for Ryan, too. Maybe we caught Ryan on a couple bad days, and they might not have been as bad for them either.
We'll see. It's episode 1. I guess we'll see how it looks. But right now, it's not looking very safe and secure and happy. They're not as giggly as they were at the very end of last season at their little picnic. And it seems like reality is really setting in for Ken right now. That the last time we saw him at this picnic, he was all, I'm ready, I'm here, nothing's going to stop me. It doesn't matter how bad it gets. And now this guy is complaining over a 1-bedroom apartment and all the stuff that's going on social media. So I think he's getting smacked in the face with the reality and getting a little bit worn down. And I think Gypsy is also recognizing that the grass is not always greener on the other side either. You really should not probably be so impulsive with the people that you jump into relationships with, because you might find that you're attracting a certain type of person, and not necessarily that your partners are just bad or have ill intentions. They're just a certain type of person that like to be around a certain type of person.
Yeah, I think Ken's one of those guys that likes the chase, because, I mean, he left Gypsy alone for 5 whole years, basically. I mean, except for when he realized she was with Ryan. It sounds like he was kind of giving her calls and stuff like that. But now that he's got her away from Ryan, it seems like his interest is just, like, going down and down. And I think a lot of it is just the chase. Like, now she's with someone else. Let me come and infiltrate and see if I can get her back. It's almost like a game. And sadly, you know, she doesn't have a lot of experience or good experience with dating enough to know that she might be in the middle of some kind of cat and mouse game, to be honest.
Yeah, she wants to feel love. She wants a lot of attention that makes her feel good. And I think it can be any kind of attention. So she might be, sort of caught in, she is, right? She's married. Has a baby with a whole other man. She's not allowed to live with either one of them. I mean, she really is caught in a big mess here.
Speaking of the mess she left behind, we go see Ryan, who finally took his damn sign down, but it left burns in the walls, which is symbolic for how she left.
I don't even think you have to really paint that over, Ryan. I think you could just take a washcloth.
Was that dirt or is that actual burn? And if it's burned, how long were you keeping that light on for? Was it just on like a convenience store? Like 24/7, we're open?
Imagine if that thing actually lit that apartment on fire.
I feel like he just left it on after she left or something. Like
He probably did. Yeah.
No, it's just like on the floor somewhere. Like
It is just still there. I mean, I get taking it down, I suppose, but I thought it was so symbolic. I just thought it was funny. What's the temperature in this man's house? 70. Oh, I thought it was 77. 71. Okay. Normal.
But we see Ryan talking to us about he is still struggling with this divorce. It doesn't seem real to him. It's hard for him to accept. I think we've all kind of been there in relationships and grieving. I mean, he's really grieving a loss. Gypsy just kind of up and dipped on him the same way that Ken kind of up and dipped on her, although Ryan got a little bit more of an explanation apparently than she did. But it's very similar to what happened with her and Ken. So she's just leaving this man in the dust, and now he's got to collect himself and figure out what his next steps are. Basically, he says, "There's a burns in my walls like the day she left," and then they cut us off and show us next time.
Yes, yeah, she's the same girl, but not my girl.
Same, different.
Mm-hmm.
For next time, Brooke.
So I thought that we could have a picture for the season while I go over what's for next time, because this is a big season trailer. So I'm going to go quickly from the things that I picked up. The baby is growing.
Okay. Typical with pregnancy.
Usually happens. Gypsy worries about Ken being responsible, and they seem to disagree on the order of getting a house versus getting a nursery, and Gypsy gives him like we don't have nothing. And I was like, wow, okay, chill out. So we'll see what happens there. Gypsy starts to say that she does not like to be in the spotlight. I think it depends on the day. She says that she feels like a circus animal sometimes. It looks like the police are going to show up at her house at least one or more times. I know that we were all aware of that from last season, that the police were there a couple times, but maybe we'll see, maybe we won't see actually why. Gypsy is worried about breaking her parole and the possibility of having her baby be born in prison, and I think that is a legitimate worry and fear, and I could not imagine worrying about that. Ryan wants to meet up with Gypsy. I don't know when, I don't know why, I don't know how. We'll see. Gypsy informs Ken that the baby's last name might be Anderson because she was still married at whatever time they were talking about this, and the paternity test is going to happen. So I don't know if that's kind of a timeline of the season, if that's where they're going to leave us, and hopefully they'll at least establish it, because we know at this point what they said, at least they said. So we'll see, but I hope that we get more than just that. Like, Gypsy has said things about not having her baby in the public eye so much, which I think is a good choice, but the nosy reality TV watching side of me really wants her to continue doing this show. Maybe she'll continue doing the show, but she won't have the baby on there. I don't know.
I think she'll continue it. And they do show the baby being born at one point in the trailer.
They do show a hospital scene, yep.
So Lifetime was there for even just a hot second. It's been rumored that they were completely alone up in there, but I guess we'll get the storyline of when that baby was born. There's a lot of conspiracy about when the baby was actually born, if it was born in November, early December, when she said it was late December. Yeah. So I guess we will see. Did actually learn from the podcast she did with Kale real quick that she's looking into getting into cosmetology, and I'm just really curious on how that's going to work, because cosmetology is kind of based off of your reputation, and either she's gonna get a lot of clients because people want to just see what she's about and what she can do, or she's gonna fumble. But
I think she'll get a lot of first-time clients, and then probably, like most people, your skills will determine if people come back. But I mean, we'll see. She's definitely gonna get a lot of people that just want to see. I'm sure she can make at least a quick bag off of that, even if she's very untalented. But I hope she doesn't hurt nobody.
And now she's got a nice little John and Kate +8 bob. She cut off all her hair.
She did, and sometimes she has brown hair, sometimes she has blonde hair, so we're going to see some physical appearance changes this season, probably not as drastic as last season. See if Ken likes her as a brunette. I know that was a big worry that she had, so maybe the therapist can help her out with that.
Or we'll see if he likes her in general. I'm still not completely convinced, but...
Facts.
Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. Remember to be nice in the comments, but definitely still comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know how you feel about this episode, how you felt about the dinner, all this stuff. Also, remember to help us get to our subscriber goal of 800.
Thanks for joining us on this first episode back, and we hope to see you all coming back next time, and we're excited to chat with you all about this season. Last time we had a lot of feedback, and it was fun to hear all of your opinions and have the channel grow at the same time. So we'll see you next time.
Yep. Remember to share the video, click the share link, and just copy a little website bar there. That's all you really have to do. You don't even got to really share it to help us out. But remember to like, subscribe, share, reduce, reuse, recycle, Rihanna, and goodbye. Good boy.